The comparison started when Jessica and I were children. She was 18 months older, articulate beyond her years, and possessed an innate ability to charm adults. I was quieter, more analytical, content to work on puzzles or tinker with electronics while Jessica commanded attention at family gatherings. Jessica has such natural leadership qualities, Mom would tell relatives. She's going to do something important someday. When I won the state science fair in middle school, the family celebration lasted exactly one dinner. When Jessica was elected student body president the following year, Mom organized a party and invited half the neighborhood. The message was clear. Jessica's achievements mattered more because they involved people and politics, the real world of adult success. High school intensified the pattern. Jessica excelled in debate, student government, and social activities. She dated the captain of the football team, organized charity fundraisers, and was accepted to Duke with plans to major in business administration. I spent my time in computer labs, building websites for local businesses, and teaching myself programming languages that weren't offered in any class. Your sister understands how to work with people, Dad would explain when I complained about the different treatment. That's what business is really about, relationships and communication. Technical skills are important, but leadership is what creates real success. Jessica's achievements were celebrated publicly. Mine were acknowledged privately, if at all. Jessica's college experience was everything the family had hoped for. She joined a prestigious sorority, interned with major corporations, and graduated summa cum laude with a business degree and job offers from 3 Fortune 500 companies. The family was justifiably proud of her accomplishments. I chose a different path. Instead of a traditional 4-year program, I attended a state school for computer science while building a software consulting business on the side. By my sophomore year, I was earning more than most college graduates. By senior year, my client list included several major corporations who paid premium rates for custom software solutions. But the family remained focused on Jessica's traditional markers of success. When she landed a management trainee position at a major consulting firm, Mom organized another celebration dinner. When I mentioned that my software business was generating 6 figures annually, the conversation quickly shifted to Jessica's corporate advancement opportunities. Jessica's on the fast track to executive leadership, Dad would explain to interested relatives. She's got the education, the connections, and the business instincts to really make it big. The implication was clear. My technical work was merely a niche skill, while Jessica's corporate trajectory represented real success in the business world. By our mid-20s, the family's financial situation had begun to deteriorate. Dad's manufacturing business was struggling against overseas competition, and Mom's retail store was losing ground to online shopping. They maintained their lifestyle through careful budgeting and increasingly creative financing arrangements, but the stress was visible to anyone paying close attention. Jessica, meanwhile, had been promoted twice at her consulting firm and was earning a respectable salary. The family took pride in her success, often mentioning her corporate achievements and professional recognition. She had moved to Chicago, lived in a trendy downtown apartment, and traveled frequently for work assignments. What the family didn't know was that Jessica's lifestyle exceeded her income by a significant margin. The trendy apartment, the business wardrobe, the professional networking events, and the social activities required to maintain her corporate image were expensive. She was accumulating credit card debt and had already borrowed against her 401k to cover living expenses. Meanwhile, my software consulting business had evolved into something much larger. What started as custom programming projects had grown into a company that developed enterprise software solutions for major corporations. We held patents on several innovations, licensed our technology to Fortune 100 companies, and maintained recurring revenue contracts worth millions annually. But I lived modestly, drove a used car, and rarely discussed the specifics of my work with family. When asked about my business, I'd mention some software projects and change the subject. The family assumed I was doing well enough, but nothing compared to Jessica's corporate success. The first time I secretly helped the family was 3 years after college. Dad's manufacturing business was facing a cash flow crisis that threatened bankruptcy. He had exhausted traditional financing options and was considering selling the family home to raise capital. Rather than offer direct assistance, which would have raised questions about my financial capacity, I arranged for an investor group to provide emergency funding through a business loan. The terms were generous, the paperwork was handled by a law firm, and Dad never knew that his anonymous benefactor was his younger son who supposedly didn't understand real business. The loan saved Dad's company and allowed him to modernize equipment, improve efficiency and remain competitive. Within 2 years the business was profitable again. Dad credited his recovery to smart business planning and good timing, rather than the mysterious investor who had appeared exactly when needed. That success led to other anonymous interventions. When Mom's retail store needed renovation capital, another mysterious loan appeared. When Jessica's apartment rent increased beyond her budget, an anonymous scholarship fund helped her pursue an MBA program that came with a housing stipend. Over the years, I became the family's invisible financial safety net. Through a network of shell companies, investment funds, and legal arrangements, I provided the capital that kept everyone's lifestyle intact while maintaining complete anonymity about the source. Jessica's acceptance into a top-tier MBA program elevated her status within the family to near-celebrity levels. The tuition was substantial, but between loans, grants, and that mysterious scholarship fund, she managed to complete the program without financial hardship. Jessica's MBA is going to open doors that most people can't even imagine, Mom would tell anyone who would listen. She's networking with future CEOs and venture capitalists. That's the kind of education that creates real wealth. Jessica's post-MBA position at a prestigious consulting firm came with a significant salary increase and expanded responsibilities. She was traveling internationally, working with C-level executives, and gaining experience with merger and acquisition projects. The family was appropriately impressed with her rapid advancement. What they didn't see was that Jessica's expenses had grown even faster than her income. The MBA program had introduced her to a social circle where expensive dinners, designer clothes and luxury vacations were standard. Her new position required extensive travel, premium accommodations, and a professional wardrobe that cost more than most people's annual salary. Jessica was earning excellent money by normal standards, but she was spending extraordinary money to maintain her image as a successful consultant. The credit card balances were growing, the 401k loans had been maximized, and she was beginning to explore personal loans to bridge the gap between income and lifestyle requirements. Meanwhile, my business had expanded internationally. We had offices in 3 countries, partnerships with major technology companies, and revenue streams that generated wealth at levels the family couldn't have imagined. My personal net worth had reached 8 figures, and I was regularly approached by investment banks about acquisition offers or IPO opportunities. What started as anonymous family assistance had evolved into a comprehensive support system. Through various investment vehicles, I had become the silent financial foundation supporting everyone's success. Dad's manufacturing business was thriving, partly due to the original emergency loan but also because of ongoing capital injections that appeared as equipment financing and expansion funding. Mom's retail operation had been completely modernized through renovation grants and small business development funds. Even Jessica's career advancement had been subtly supported through networking events and professional development opportunities funded by anonymous sponsors. The family attributed their collective success to hard work, smart planning and good timing. They had no idea that their financial stability depended on continued support from someone they considered the less successful sibling. My investment in their success was substantial but easily manageable given my business's growth trajectory. What had started as helping family through difficult times had become a comprehensive wealth management strategy that ensured everyone's continued prosperity. But the family dynamic remained unchanged. Jessica was still the golden child whose corporate achievements represented real success. I was still the technical guy who had done well enough in his niche field but didn't really understand how serious business worked. The Christmas gathering that changed everything happened during Jessica's second year at the prestigious consulting firm. She had recently been promoted to senior consultant and was working on a high-profile merger project. The family was eager to hear about her professional achievements and the sophisticated business world she inhabited. "The merger I'm working on involves 2 Fortune 500 companies," Jessica explained over dinner. "The complexity is incredible: regulatory issues, cultural integration challenges, stakeholder management, financial restructuring. It requires understanding business at the highest levels." Mom beamed with pride. Jessica's working with the kind of executives who make decisions that affect thousands of jobs and billions in revenue. Dad nodded enthusiastically. That's real business. Strategic thinking, leadership, understanding how complex organizations operate. You can't learn that from books. You need experience working at the highest levels. I listened politely, asking occasional questions about specific aspects of the merger process. My questions were informed by my own experience with corporate acquisitions, partnership deals, and business development strategies, but the family interpreted them as curiosity from someone who didn't really understand sophisticated business operations. It's nice that you're interested in Jessica's work, Mom said privately while we were cleaning up. Maybe you can learn something about how real business gets done at the executive level. The condescension was gentle but unmistakable. After years of providing anonymous financial support that enabled everyone's success, I was still viewed as the family member who didn't quite understand how serious business worked. The comment that triggered everything happened during dessert. Jessica had been describing the networking opportunities available through her consulting firm, the industry conferences, the client entertainment events, the social functions that brought together successful professionals from various industries. The connections you make at this level are incredible, she said. CEOs, venture capitalists, investment bankers, private equity partners. These are people who control billions in capital and make decisions that shape entire industries. She glanced at me with what appeared to be sympathy mixed with superiority. It's a completely different world from small-scale technical work. You're dealing with strategic decisions that require understanding market dynamics, regulatory environments, competitive positioning, stakeholder management. It's not something you can figure out by working on computer projects. The family nodded in agreement. Jessica had perfectly articulated what they all believed about the hierarchy of business success. Technical skills were useful, but real success required working at the strategic level with sophisticated professionals who understood how major business decisions got made. Then Mom delivered the line that ended 8 years of anonymous support. "You'll never be as good as your sister," she sneered, looking directly at me. "She's the successful one." Dad immediately agreed. Finally, someone understands business. The moment crystallized everything wrong with the family dynamic. After years of secretly providing the financial foundation that supported everyone's lifestyle and career success, I was still being dismissed as someone who couldn't compete with Jessica's corporate achievements. I looked around the table at the faces of people whose mortgages I had been paying, whose business loans I had been funding, whose lifestyle I had been subsidizing through anonymous investments and carefully structured financial arrangements. Then I replied calmly, "Ask her to pay your bills then." The table went silent. Mom's face showed confusion mixed with irritation. "What does that mean?" I pulled out my phone and called my primary wealth manager at J.P. Morgan Private Bank. "Hi, Patricia," I said when she answered. "I need to discuss restructuring some family investment positions." The confusion around the table was intensifying. Jessica looked like she was watching someone have a breakdown in public. "I want to review the anonymous funding arrangements for the Mitchell family accounts," I continued. "Specifically the manufacturing business loans, the retail operation financing, and the educational support programs." Patricia's voice was clear enough for the table to hear her response. "Of course, Mr. Mitchell. Your family support portfolio represents approximately $300 million in various loan guarantees, direct investments and grant programs. Would you like to schedule a comprehensive review?" The silence that followed was absolute. "Also," I added, "I want to discuss liquidating my position in Hartwell Consulting Group. I believe Jessica works there." "That's correct," Patricia confirmed. "Your investment firm acquired a 40% stake in Hartwell last year as part of their expansion financing. Your representative serves on their board of directors." I looked directly at Jessica, whose face had gone completely white. "Patricia, I'd like to understand what would happen if we withdrew that investment and called in the various family loans." "Well," Patricia said thoughtfully, "liquidating the Hartwell position would likely trigger a restructuring of their operations. As for the family loans, calling them would require immediate repayment of approximately $180 million in principal and accrued interest." Mom was staring at me like I had just announced that I was actually an alien. "That's not possible," she whispered. I handed her the phone. "Would you like to ask Patricia about the investment structure?" The conversation with Patricia lasted 20 minutes. She patiently explained the network of companies, investment vehicles, and financial arrangements that I had used to support the family while maintaining anonymity. The manufacturing business loans, the retail operation funding, the educational support programs, even Jessica's consulting firm. Everything was connected to investment decisions I had been making for nearly 8 years. When Mom hung up the phone, her hands were shaking. "You've been paying our bills," she said. "I've been providing investment capital and loan guarantees," I corrected. "Through properly structured financial arrangements designed to support family business operations and educational opportunities." Jessica finally found her voice. "You own part of my company." "My investment firm owns 40% of Hartwell Consulting Group." "Yes." The capital injection helped fund their international expansion and technology modernization program. Dad was shaking his head slowly. "The emergency loan that saved my business came from a fund I established specifically to support family business ventures," I explained. The realization was hitting them that everything they had achieved over the past 8 years had been built on a foundation of capital provided by the family member they had consistently dismissed as less successful. Jessica's consulting career, which had been held up as the gold standard of business success, was partially dependent on investment capital from her supposedly unsuccessful younger brother. Mom and Dad's business recovery, their comfortable lifestyle, their financial security, all of it was connected to anonymous support from someone they thought didn't understand real business. The weeks following the Christmas revelation were difficult for everyone. Years of assumptions about success, competence, and business understanding had been completely overturned. The family had to recalibrate their understanding of who was actually successful and who had been supporting whom. Jessica took the news particularly hard. Everything she had believed about her professional achievements had been complicated by the knowledge that her employer was partially funded by her brother's investment capital. The sophisticated business world she had described with such pride included financial backing from someone she had dismissed as technically competent but strategically naive. But something positive emerged from the honesty. For the first time in years, we had genuine conversations about business, success, and family dynamics. Jessica's experience with corporate strategy was valuable, but it wasn't more valuable than entrepreneurial success or technical innovation. Her MBA provided useful frameworks, but it didn't provide superior understanding of how wealth actually gets created. I maintained all the existing family support arrangements. The anonymous loans remained in place. The business investments continued to provide capital for growth, and the educational support programs kept funding opportunities that might not otherwise exist. But the dynamic had changed fundamentally. Instead of being viewed as the less successful sibling who didn't understand real business, I was finally recognized as someone who had built substantial wealth through technical expertise, strategic thinking, and careful capital allocation. My success wasn't lesser than Jessica's. It was different and in some ways more substantial. Jessica, meanwhile, began to appreciate that corporate success and entrepreneurial success require different skills but equal intelligence and dedication. Her experience with merger and acquisition projects was genuinely valuable, but it wasn't inherently superior to building and scaling technology companies. Most importantly, the family learned that success comes in many forms. Traditional corporate advancement matters, but it doesn't matter more than innovation, entrepreneurship, or technical expertise. MBA credentials are valuable, but they're not more valuable than practical experience solving real problems for paying customers. The comparison game that had defined our relationship for decades finally ended. Instead of competing for family recognition, we began to collaborate on understanding how our different strengths could complement each other. 5 years after the Christmas revelation, the family dynamics had stabilized into something much healthier. Jessica had transitioned from her consulting firm to join my company as head of strategic partnerships, where her corporate experience and relationship management skills were perfectly suited to the role. Mom and Dad's businesses continued to thrive with ongoing investment support, but they approached that support with gratitude rather than entitlement. They understood that their financial stability was not automatic or inevitable. It was the result of careful planning and family support that should never be taken for granted. The golden child system that had dominated our childhood was finally dismantled. Instead of competing for parental approval based on whose achievements looked more impressive, we were evaluated based on our contributions to family success and our character as people. I never again let anyone in the family assume that their traditional markers of success automatically made them more qualified to judge other people's achievements. And Jessica never again questioned whether technical expertise and entrepreneurial success constituted real business. The pretending was over. The anonymous support continued, but now it was acknowledged, appreciated, and understood as part of a comprehensive family wealth strategy rather than mysterious good fortune. Most importantly, we learned that asking someone to pay your bills isn't just about money. It's about recognizing who actually provides the foundation that makes everyone else's success possible. Sometimes that foundation is invisible, but it's always essential. The conversation about who understands real business never came up again. Because we all finally understood that real business success comes in many forms, and the most important form is the kind that actually pays the bills.
Sarah, we need to talk, my husband, Michael said. His voice sounded sad, but I knew he was pretending. I looked up from my laptop where I was planning our home renovation. His mother, Linda, stood beside him, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. My stomach tightened. I knew this act. Linda was very good at fake crying. The doctor says I have 6 months to live, Linda said, her voice shaking. I don't want to be alone at the end. She fell into our armchair, the same one I had seen her measuring last week, complaining it didn't match her decor. My name is Sarah Parker, and at 34, I had finally bought my dream home. After my parents died in a car accident 2 years ago, I used my inheritance to buy a beautiful Victorian house. It needed work, but it was mine. Linda never liked that. Mom needs to move in with us, Michael said firmly. We can turn your art studio into her bedroom. My chest tightened. The art studio was special to me. It was my dream to paint there. The sunlight coming through the windows was perfect. I know this is unexpected, Linda sniffled, but family sticks together in hard times. She had never treated me as family in the 8 years I had been married to Michael. She always saw me as the woman who had trapped her son. Which doctor told you this? I asked carefully. Maybe we should get a second opinion. Linda hesitated, then said, Dr. Thompson. But I trust him. I nodded. Dr. Thompson, the same doctor who supposedly diagnosed her with a rare disease last year, just before Michael and I were supposed to go to Italy. We canceled our trip to take care of her, but 2 weeks later she was fine. I need to think about this, I said. Think about it, Michael shouted. My mother is dying. Where is your compassion? I looked at my husband. He had always chosen his mother over me. Something inside me changed. Yes, I need to think about it, I said firmly. This is my house too. Actually, Linda said sweetly, since Michael is your husband, it's his house too, and a son's duty to his mother. The house is in my name only, I cut in. I bought it with my inheritance. Linda's smile faded. But that's not the point. This is a big decision, and I won't rush into it. I walked outside to the garden, my favorite place. Sitting on a bench, I pulled out my phone and called Dr. Thompson's office. I'm sorry, the receptionist said. We have no patient records for a Linda Morrison. I thanked her and hung up. My suspicions were right. I called my sister, Emma, a nurse. Can you check something for me? I asked. 2 days later, I had my answer. Linda had not been to any oncologist. She had no cancer, no diagnosis. She was lying. For a week, I watched as Linda and Michael planned her move. She brought boxes over, talked about painting the walls. Michael barely spoke to me, acting as if I was cruel for hesitating. Then came the family dinner. Linda invited everyone. Michael's sisters, their husbands, aunts, uncles, cousins. She wanted them to pressure me. She stood up, pretending to be emotional. She announced her diagnosis and said how I had graciously agreed to let her move in. Everyone praised Michael for being such a good son. Then I stood up. My hands were steady as I lifted my glass. I have something to say. Linda smiled, expecting me to agree. Instead, I pulled out a folder and met her eyes. I spoke to Dr. Thompson's office, I said, and every other oncologist in the state. Linda's face turned pale. The dining room went silent. Linda's fork dropped onto her plate, the clatter echoing in the tense air. Her face, already pale, turned almost white. I don't understand, she stammered, reaching for her water with shaking hands. Dr. Thompson doesn't share patient details. That's interesting, I said calmly, because Dr. Thompson retired 3 years ago. His clinic doesn't even exist anymore. Michael stood up suddenly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Sarah, what are you doing? I opened my folder and pulled out the papers. I checked with every cancer hospital within 100 miles. No Linda Morrison has been diagnosed with cancer. No Linda Morrison has even been tested for it. The room filled with whispers. Linda's sister, Patricia, leaned forward, frowning. Linda, is this true? She's lying, Linda shouted, standing up. She's trying to turn you all against me because she doesn't want me in her fancy house. Actually, I said, sliding the papers across the table, I'm telling the truth. These are the hospital records. You can call and check for yourselves. Michael grabbed the documents, his hands shaking. This has to be wrong. Mom wouldn't. But she would, his sister Jessica said quietly. Remember when she faked pneumonia before your wedding? Or the heart problem when you got that job in Seattle? Linda's face twisted with anger. Jessica, how dare you? I'm your mother. Yes, you are, Jessica said. And I love you. But this has to stop. The lies, the tricks, the drama, it's not okay. Michael sat down, staring at the papers in his hands. Slowly, the truth sank in. The house, he whispered. You wanted the house. Linda lost control. Of course I wanted the house. She doesn't deserve it. She used her inheritance to buy that beautiful home while I'm stuck in my tiny ranch house. It's not fair. Not fair? I repeated, keeping my voice level. Like it wasn't fair when you tried to convince Michael to challenge my inheritance. Or when you told everyone at church I was flaunting my parents' death by buying the house. The shocked gasps around the table told me that Linda hadn't shared those particular details with the family. Michael's head snapped up, his eyes wide. You did what? She needed to be put in her place, Linda hissed. Always acting so perfect, so independent. A real wife would have given that money to her husband. Like you gave your inheritance to Dad? Patricia asked, her voice sharp. Oh wait, you didn't get one. Is that what this is really about, Linda? The truth hung heavy in the air. Linda's face crumpled, not in fake tears this time, but in genuine defeat. The careful manipulation she orchestrated was falling apart, exposing years of jealousy and resentment. I just wanted, she started, then stopped, looking lost. You wanted to control everything, like always, Jessica finished. But this time you went too far. Faking cancer? That's cruel, Mom, not just to Sarah, but to everyone who's actually fighting that battle. Michael stood up again, but this time his posture was different, defeated, tired. I think everyone should go home, he said quietly. Mom, I'll drive you. But Michael, Linda protested. No, Mom, not this time. As the family filed out, each person avoiding Linda's desperate gaze, I stayed at the table, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Patricia stopped beside me, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, she said softly. We should have seen it sooner. After everyone left, I began clearing the barely touched dinner plates, the sound of Michael's car starting and pulling away echoing in the quiet house. I wasn't sure if he'd come back tonight. I wasn't sure of anything anymore. But as I stood in my kitchen in my house, I felt something unexpected, relief. The truth was finally out, and with it, the weight of years of subtle manipulation and forced smiles lifted from my shoulders. I walked to the window that overlooked my garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Whatever happened next, I knew I'd done the right thing. My parents had taught me to stand up for myself, and tonight, I finally had. The sound of the front door opening made me turn. Michael stood in the doorway, his face etched with exhaustion and something else. Shame. I dropped her off at home, Michael said, his voice rough. She cried the whole way there, said I was choosing you over her. I stayed silent, watching as he moved into the kitchen, looking lost in the space that had always been our home. He ran his hand over the counter, the one we picked up together during our renovation. But that's not what this is about, is it? He continued. This is about choosing truth over lies. I've been blind, Sarah, so blind. I leaned against the sink, crossing my arms. Yes, you have. All those times she had emergencies, conveniently when we were about to do something important. He shook his head. The tropical disease before our Italy trip, the heart palpitations when I got the Seattle job offer, and now this. She knew what she was doing, I said softly. She always has. Michael looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. How did you stay? Knowing she was manipulating everything, watching me believe her every time. Because I loved you, I replied simply. But Michael, I won't do it anymore. I can't. He nodded, sinking into one of our kitchen chairs. I don't expect you to. What she did, faking cancer, his voice broke. My aunt died of cancer last year. How could she use that? I moved to sit across from him, feeling the weight of this moment. Your mother needs help, Michael. Professional help. This isn't normal behavior. Jessica's already looking into family therapists, he said. She thinks mom's behavior has gotten worse since dad died. The need to control everything, to be the center of attention. We sat in silence for a while, the ticking of the kitchen clock marking time as we both processed the evening's events. Finally, Michael reached across the table, his hand open, palm up. I know I don't deserve it, he said quietly, but I'd like a chance to make this right. To be the husband you deserve, not just the son my mother wanted me to be. I looked at his outstretched hand, thinking of all we'd been through. It won't be easy, I warned. There needs to be boundaries. Real ones. I know he agreed. No more emergency visits, no more guilt trips, no more letting her make decisions about our life. And he hesitated, then continued firmly. I think we should go to counseling too. Together. I need to understand how I let this happen, how I hurt you by always putting her first. I felt tears prick at my eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. This was the man I'd married, the one who'd been buried under years of his mother's manipulation. Okay, I said, placing my hand in his. We can try. The next few months weren't easy. Linda alternated between tearful apologies and bitter accusations, but we held firm to our boundaries. Michael started therapy, both with me and on his own, working through years of ingrained patterns. I finished my art studio, filling it with canvases and light. Sometimes, when I'm painting there, I think about that family dinner and how close I came to losing my dream home to Linda's schemes. But then I look at the changes in our lives, the peace, the honesty, the renewed connection between Michael and me, and I know it was worth it. Linda eventually agreed to counseling, though it took Jessica and Patricia's ultimatum to get her there. She's learning slowly to build relationships based on truth rather than manipulation. Last week, she even sent me a card, a real one, apologizing for everything. It's a small step, but it's something. Michael and I finally took that trip to Italy, sending postcards to his mother from every city we visited. When we returned, our house was exactly as we'd left it. No emergencies, no drama, just home. Yesterday, as I worked in my garden, I found the first rosebud of spring pushing through the soil. Like that tiny flower, our family is growing in new ways, healthier ways. It's not perfect, but it's real, and that's all I ever wanted. The house stands as it always has, but now it feels different. It's not just my sanctuary anymore. It's our home, mine and Michael's, built on a foundation of truth and trust. And that's something no manipulation could ever provide. You're not really our kind, dear, Patricia said with a honeyed smile, bearing the entrance to her opulent home. The glow of the Christmas tree flickered through the grand bay window behind her, illuminating a dining table set with polished silver and heirloom china. We prefer to keep our Christmas dinner intimate. I stood motionless in the snow, the homemade apple pie cradled in my hands, its warmth quickly leaching into the frigid December air. My breath curled in misty tendrils before me. Beside Patricia, my husband, James, shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. The silence was deafening. My name is Olivia. I was 32, and this was supposed to be my first Christmas with my husband's family. We had been married for 6 months, but despite my efforts to bridge the gap, the Harrisons had made their disdain clear. A simple girl from a middle-class background was not the future they had envisioned for their golden boy. But James and I are married, I said, steadying my voice, determined not to waver. That makes me family. Patricia's smile widened, sickly sweet, her red lips curving with something close to amusement. Marriage is just a legal contract, dear. It doesn't grant you class. She let the last word linger in the cold air like an unspoken accusation. Over her shoulder, I spotted James's sisters, Madison and Elizabeth, whispering, their designer gowns catching the chandelier light in delicate shimmers. His father, Richard, stood by the fireplace, his back deliberately turned. I turned to James, my heart lodged in my throat. James? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Maybe it's better if you go home, Liv, he mumbled. I'll talk to them. We can celebrate tomorrow, just us. The betrayal struck harder than the winter wind. I had spent 6 months enduring their subtle jabs, showing up to their charity functions, playing the part of the dutiful wife, only to be dismissed like an unwelcome guest. Of course, I said, gripping the pie dish tighter. Enjoy your intimate dinner. As I turned, Patricia called after me. Owen dear, you can leave the pie. We already have one from Constantine's bakery, the best in the city. I didn't stop. The pie was mine. A recipe passed down through generations from a grandmother who had taught me that love was measured in effort, not in price tags. The drive home was a blur of snow and city lights. Boston lay beneath a pristine white blanket, serene and indifferent to my humiliation. I pulled up to our apartment, quaint as the Harrisons called it, and let the first tears fall in the quiet of the car. My phone buzzed. A message from James. They just need time. Don't take it personally. I exhaled shakily, as if being turned away from my husband's family home. Told I wasn't good enough, wasn't deeply personal. Another buzz. Madison this time. Nothing personal, Olivia. But Christmas at the Harrisons is a tradition. Maybe next year, if you've improved. Attached was a picture of them around the dinner table, all smiles, crystal flutes raised in a toast. I wiped my tears and straightened my shoulders. They didn't know about the letter I'd received last week, the one I had planned to share tonight, foolishly thinking it might change how they saw me. Another buzz. Sophie, my best friend. Still on for New Year's. The renovations are almost done. A slow smile crept onto my lips. They had no idea. My grandmother hadn't just left me her pie recipe. She had left me everything. The historic Hamilton House, one of the most coveted estates in New England, now belonged to me. The very property the Harrisons had been vying to purchase for years. And in just a few weeks, it would be the setting for the most prestigious event of the season. Definitely, I texted back. Send out the invitations tomorrow. Make sure the Harrisons get theirs. I set the pie on the counter and unfolded my grandmother's letter once more. My dearest Olivia, it read, Hamilton House isn't just bricks and mortar. It's a legacy. True class isn't about where you come from, but how you carry yourself. Use it wisely. Oh, I intended to. James called 3 times that night. Each one went to voicemail. Tomorrow, I would deal with his apologies. Tonight, I had a party to plan and a lesson in class to deliver. As my grandmother always said, living well is the best revenge. The next morning, James found me methodically packing my suitcase. Liv, please, he murmured, lingering in the doorway like a shadow. You know how they are. They'll come around. I folded a sweater with careful precision, my movements slow, deliberate. You're right, James. I do know how they are now. And more importantly, I know how you are too. His brow creased. What's that supposed to mean? I met his eyes in the mirror, my expression unwavering. It means I watched my husband stand by in silence while his family humiliated his wife on Christmas Day. And that tells me everything I need to know. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair, a habit I once found endearing. Now it felt like a performance. Where are you even going? Sophie's. I zipped up my suitcase. I need space to think. I did mention that Sophie's meant Hamilton House. That revelation could wait. James's phone buzzed, the screen flashing with a new message. Madison's name. I caught the words before he could turn it over. Daddy's furious about Olivia's dramatic exit last night. She's embarrassing the family name. A hollow laugh escaped my lips. Your sister seems quite concerned about the family name, I said coolly. You should go comfort her. Liv, don't be like this. Like what, James? Someone who expects basic decency. Someone who thought her husband would stand up for her. I pulled up my suitcase handle. You should go. I'm sure they're waiting for you at their precious after-Christmas brunch. He reached for my arm as I passed, his touch hesitant. At least tell me when you're coming back. I gently pried his fingers away. When I figure out if I want to. The drive to Hamilton House wound through Boston's historic district, past elegant townhouses and manicured gardens. My grandmother's home, now mine, stood at the end of Beacon Street, its red brick facade and stately white columns exuding quiet power. Sophie was already waiting on the front steps, clipboard in hand. The contractors just finished the ballroom, she announced as I stepped out. Wait until you see it. Inside, the house was a breathtaking fusion of historic charm and modern refinement. Crystal chandeliers gleamed from carved ceilings, state-of-the-art lighting accentuating century-old artwork. The ballroom, framed by floor-to-ceiling windows and a marble fireplace, stole my breath. The invitations went out this morning, Sophie continued, including a special hand-delivered one to the Harrison family. A slow smile curled my lips. I could already picture Patricia's expression when she received the embossed invitation to the most coveted event of the season. The Hamilton House New Year's Eve party had been a Boston institution for decades, until my grandmother's illness put it on hold. Now, its revival was the talk of the city. Any responses yet? Sophie glanced at her phone. 3 already, including Elizabeth Harrison. She called twice to confirm it wasn't a mistake. Oh, it's no mistake. I ran a hand along the mahogany banister as we ascended the grand staircase. They wanted class. They'll get it. The RSVPs flooded in over the next few days. Politicians, art collectors, socialites. James called daily, his messages growing increasingly bewildered. I let them both a voicemail. A week before New Year's Eve, I was reviewing the catering menu when the doorbell rang. Through the ornate glass panels, I spotted Patricia Harrison standing stiffly on my porch, clutching the invitation as if it might burn her fingers. I opened the door slowly, savoring the way her gaze flickered over the grand foyer behind me. Mrs. Harrison, I greeted smoothly. What a surprise. Olivia? Her eyes darted from me to the house. What are you doing here? I leaned against the doorframe, unhurried. I live here. Would you like to come in? The contractors just installed the new Italian marble in the conservatory. She hesitated before stepping inside, her designer heels clicking against the polished herringbone floors. But this is Hamilton House. It belongs to my grandmother, I supplied. And now it belongs to me. Shock, disbelief, and then something close to panic rippled across her face. You're Eleanor Hamilton's granddaughter. The very same. I gestured to the drawing room, where framed photographs of my grandmother and me graced the mantel. Tea. Patricia lowered herself into an antique armchair, still gripping the invitation. But you're a librarian. You live in that little apartment. I poured tea into my grandmother's wedgwood cups, unbothered. I am a librarian, and I love my job. But I chose that apartment because it was convenient. I swept a hand toward the vaulted ceiling, the sprawling estate. This is my heritage. Her gaze lingered on the grand staircase, the priceless artwork. And the New Year's Eve party? It's really happening here? It is. I set a cup of tea in front of her. Consider your family's invitations my Christmas gift, since I wasn't able to give you my pie. Her lips parted, understanding dawning. She had spent years vying for a seat among Boston's elite, only to throw away a connection to its true aristocracy. Does James know? Not yet. I sat back, crossing my legs. I had planned to tell everyone at Christmas dinner, but, well, we know how that turned out. She set down her teacup with trembling fingers. Olivia, there seems to have been a misunderstanding. I arched a brow. No misunderstanding, Mrs. Harrison. You made your feelings quite clear. I rose, signaling the conversation's end. I look forward to seeing you at the party, if you choose to attend, of course. I wouldn't want you to feel uncomfortable around people who aren't your kind. Her mouth pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing as I walked her to the door. She hesitated on the threshold, taking in the towering crystal chandelier one last time. Then, without another word, she stepped outside. The door clicked shut behind her with a finality that sent satisfaction humming through me. Somewhere across the city, James was probably still wondering why I hadn't answered his calls. He would find out soon enough. They all would. Hamilton House's New Year's Eve party was 4 days away, and I had a statement to make. New Year's Eve arrived with a soft layer of snow, making Hamilton House look like a magical place. Twinkling lights decorated the garden, and inside, the ballroom was warm and bright from the crystal chandeliers. I stood at the top of the grand staircase, adjusting my grandmother's sapphire necklace. My blue silk dress was simple but elegant, just like my grandmother always said, true class doesn't need to be loud. They're here, Sophie said beside me. The Harrisons just arrived. All of them. I watched from above as they walked in. Patricia wore an expensive new dress. Richard looked uncomfortable in his tuxedo, and Madison and Elizabeth whispered excitedly. Then there was James, my husband, his eyes searching the crowd, looking nervous. Mrs. Hamilton Pierce, the butler announced, using my full name for the first time. The room fell silent as I walked down the stairs. James's face showed shock, confusion, and then understanding. He started to move toward me, but Sophie smoothly stepped in his way. "Welcome to Hamilton House," I said to everyone. My grandmother loved this party. She believed in bringing people together to celebrate new beginnings. Tonight, we continue that tradition. The evening was lively. I greeted guests, shared memories of my grandmother, and watched as many people came to pay their respects to Eleanor Hamilton's granddaughter. The Harrisons stood in their own little group, watching everything. Finally, James managed to reach me. "Why did you tell me?" he asked quietly. "I tried," I said. "I was going to announce it at Christmas dinner, but I wasn't good enough for your family's table." "Liv, I'm so sorry. If I had known." "That's the problem," I interrupted. "It shouldn't matter who my family is or what I own. You should have stood up for me because I'm your wife." Before he could answer, Patricia appeared. "Olivia, darling," she said sweetly, as if she hadn't thrown me out of her house a week ago. "What a wonderful party. Just like your grandmother's. You know, I always admired Eleanor." "Did you?" I asked with a polite smile. "Funny, she never mentioned you." Patricia hesitated. "Well, we were in the same social circles. My grandmother welcomed everyone, Mrs. Harrison. She taught me that true class isn't about money or status. It's about how you treat people." I looked at both her and James. "That's why I'm announcing tonight that Hamilton House will become a cultural center. We'll have reading programs for kids, art classes for the community, and this New Year's Eve party will continue, but as a charity event." James stared. "You're opening the house to the public, to everyone," I said. "No one will be judged for who they are." Later that night, just before midnight, James found me in the library, my grandmother's favorite room. "I've been a fool," he admitted. "Yes, you have. Can we start over? Try again?" I looked at him, really seeing him for the first time. "That depends. Will you stand by me, even when it means standing up to them?" "I will," he said firmly. "I should have done it long ago. You're my family, Liv. The rest is just noise." "Prove it," I told him. "Help me with the cultural center. Show me you understand what really matters." James glanced around the room, the books, the cozy chairs, the pictures of my grandmother teaching me to read. "I'd like that," he said softly. "I want to be part of this." At midnight, as people cheered in the ballroom, I thought about my grandmother's words, "Use the house wisely." Looking at James's hopeful face, Patricia's embarrassed one, and the joy this house could bring to others, I knew I had found my way. "Happy New Year," I said, holding out my hand. James took it, knowing this wasn't forgiveness yet, but a chance to earn it. "Happy New Year, Liv." Sometimes the best way to move forward isn't revenge, it's rising above. It's turning pain into something good. As the first notes of Auld Lang Syne played, I smiled. This really was a fresh start, not just for me and James, but for everyone who would step through these doors in the years to come. Because that's what real class is. The text message arrived at 2:37 a.m., jolting me awake with its harsh blue light cutting through the darkness of our bedroom. My first thought was something must be wrong. No one sends messages at this hour unless it's an emergency. My name is Elena Martinez, 35 years old, and little did I know that this single message would be the first thread in a complex tapestry of betrayal that would change everything. "We need to talk," the message read. It was from Sophia, my husband Michael's sister. I'd always known Sophia didn't like me. From the moment Michael and I got married 5 years ago, there was something beneath her polite smile. A tension, a barely concealed disdain that made family gatherings feel like walking through a minefield. Michael stirred beside me, his breathing deep and steady. He'd been working late at the law firm, something that had become increasingly common over the past few months. I carefully slipped out of bed, not wanting to wake him, and walked to the kitchen. The message continued. "Meet me at the cafe on Oak Street, 7 a.m. Don't tell Michael." My hand trembled slightly as I read the words. There was an urgency, almost a threat in her tone that sent a chill down my spine. I'd met Michael in graduate school. He was studying law. I was pursuing my doctorate in environmental science. We were the perfect power couple, or so everyone thought. Michael from a wealthy family, me with my academic ambitions, both driven and passionate about our respective fields. Sophia had always been different. While Michael was the responsible, ambitious sibling, she bounced between jobs, always expecting her family to bail her out. Their parents, especially their mother, had always been overly protective of Sophia, making excuses for her constant financial troubles and failed relationships. I checked the time. 4:15 a.m. Sleep was impossible now. Something in Sophia's message felt different. Not just another family drama, but something more calculated. The "don't tell Michael" part echoed with a sense of impending revelation that made my stomach twist. When morning came, I prepared carefully. I dressed in the blue blazer Michael loved, the one that made me feel strongest. My doctoral research on urban environmental sustainability was gaining recognition, and I'd worked hard to build my reputation. The cafe was quiet when I arrived. Sophia was already there, her perfectly manicured nails wrapped around a coffee cup. She looked different, more serious than I'd ever seen her. "You took everything from me," she said without preamble. I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" Her laugh was brittle, sharp-edged. "Michael. My brother. My family's attention. Everything." I realized then that this was more than a simple confrontation. This was a declaration of war. "Michael and I built our life together." I said carefully, "I don't understand what you mean." Sophia leaned forward, her eyes glinting with a mix of desperation and something darker. "You have no idea what's coming to you." The way she said it, like a promise, like a threat, made my blood run cold. What Sophia didn't know was that I wasn't the naive woman she believed me to be. Years of academic research had taught me to look beneath surfaces, to understand complex systems and hidden motivations. And something told me that this conversation was about to change everything. "Tell me," I said, my voice steady. "What exactly are you planning?" Little did Sophia know, I was already 3 steps ahead, and the game was just beginning. The courtroom was silent, full of tension. I sat calmly, hands in my lap, watching as the truth finally came out. Sophia had made a mistake. She thought I was weak, just a quiet observer in my own life. For weeks, I had gathered proof. Bank records, secret messages, recorded talks. What I found was worse than I had imagined. Michael's mother, Eleanor, sat behind me. Her perfect suit and makeup couldn't hide her fear. She knew what was coming. "Mrs. Martinez," the judge said, "please summarize your claims." I stood up. "Your Honor, this was a planned effort to ruin my marriage and my life." I explained how Sophia and Eleanor had worked together to frame me. They faked messages and photos, hired private detectives, and built a false story of me cheating. Their goal was to make Michael divorce me and leave me with nothing. They believed that once I was gone, Michael would be easy to control. But they had underestimated me. I had been watching them, gathering proof for months. "The most important evidence," I said, "is this." I handed the court clerk a USB drive. It contained proof, bank transfers, conversations, and records of payments to lawyers and investigators. Thousands of dollars spent on lies. Michael sat in shock. His lawyer whispered urgently, but he had no defense. "This isn't just about a divorce," I said. "This was a full plan to destroy my reputation, my career, and my future." The court reviewed the evidence, bank records, text messages, and recorded conversations. The truth was undeniable. The judge looked serious. What started as a divorce case had now become a bigger legal issue: fraud and harassment. Sophia turned pale. Eleanor looked shaken. Michael looked sick. My lawyer spoke next. "The damage to my client is not just financial. Her career and emotional well-being were attacked. Their family's perfect image was falling apart. Years of manipulation were now exposed." The final decision was clear. Michael would lose the divorce case, and his family faced possible legal charges. As I left the courtroom, I felt peaceful. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. Outside, the sun was shining. My phone buzzed, messages of support from friends and colleagues. Eleanor walked up to me. "You've destroyed this family," she said. I looked at her calmly. "No, your own actions did that." As I walked away, I realized something important. The best way to fight lies isn't anger. It's patience. It's proof. It's knowing your own worth. Sophia and her family had made one big mistake. They had underestimated me. Just then, my phone rang. It was the dean of my department. A new research grant, an exciting project. My career was moving forward. Life, I thought, has its own way of bringing justice. The courtroom hummed with tension, a quiet electricity that speaks of impending revelation. I sat composed, my blue blazer pressed, my evidence meticulously organized. My name is Elena Martinez, and today everything would change. Sophia and Michael's mother, Eleanor, sat 2 rows behind me. Their perfectly coordinated outfits couldn't mask the fear brewing in their eyes. Mrs. Martinez, the judge addressed me, please summarize your claims. I stood, my movements deliberate and controlled. Your Honor, this is about a calculated attempt to destroy my life, my marriage, and my professional reputation. The evidence unfolded like a carefully constructed narrative. Bank statements, recorded conversations, text messages, a comprehensive trail of manipulation that stretched back months. Their plan had been intricate: fabricate evidence of my infidelity, create grounds for a divorce that would leave me with nothing. Michael would be easily manipulated once I was out of the picture. What they didn't understand was that I was never just a passive target. Exhibit A, I said, sliding a USB drive to the court clerk. It contained a network of financial transactions, payments between Eleanor, Sophia, and a web of lawyers and private investigators. Michael looked shell-shocked, his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear. The confident attorney I'd married had been reduced to a cornered man. My lawyer began detailing the financial damages, not just monetary, but the emotional trauma, the professional reputation they'd attempted to destroy. The most damning evidence was a series of recordings. Sophia and Eleanor discussing how they would eliminate me, how I was an obstacle to their family's perfect image. They believed I was just a simple academic, I explained, someone they could easily manipulate and discard. The judge's expression grew increasingly serious. What had begun as a divorce hearing was transforming into an investigation of systematic fraud and harassment. Sophia's face drained of color. Eleanor's perfectly maintained composure cracked. Michael looked like he might be sick. When the hearing concluded, the results were definitive: a complete dismantling of their elaborate scheme. Michael would not only lose the divorce proceedings but potentially face legal consequences. As we left the courtroom, a strange calm settled over me. This wasn't about revenge. This was about justice, about protecting myself when no one else would. Outside, the summer sun blazed. My phone buzzed with messages of support from colleagues, my research team, people who understood my true value. Eleanor approached, her usual confidence gone. You've destroyed this family, she whispered. I met her gaze, calm and direct. No, I replied. Your own actions did that long before I spoke a word. Walking away, I realized something profound. The most powerful weapon against manipulation isn't anger. It's documentation. It's patience. It's knowing your own worth. My academic training had prepared me for this moment. The ability to observe, to collect evidence, to build a comprehensive case. These were skills I'd honed for years. Sophia and her family had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated me. As I stepped into the sunlight, my phone rang. The dean of my department, a new international research grant, a collaboration that would take my work to unprecedented levels. Life, I realized, has its own way of delivering justice. Later that evening, sitting in my apartment, I reflected on the day's events. The carefully constructed plan that had taken months to unravel. The family dynamics that had been toxic long before I entered the picture. My research on urban environmental sustainability had taught me something crucial. Systems are complex. Family systems, legal systems, personal relationships, they all have hidden currents, unspoken rules. I had navigated those currents. I had survived. A message from a colleague caught my eye. Impressive work today, it read. Not many would have the patience, the strategic thinking to pull this off. I smiled. This wasn't just a victory. This was a statement.